Hey guys, today we are going to wrap up this lesson and we're going to start with 2.3. I know we kind of started it last Tuesday, but we're going to finish it up. So let's kind of review what we did in class. We ended up graphing the equation based on Aunt Mary living 10 yards away. So we basically had to move all of the points up 10 spaces. Let me switch over. So we ended up having here at 10. At this point, we had to move up 10. Remember that they're counting by ones on the Y, but they're counting by halves here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we had to go over and click 3. So 6 spaces. Same thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go over to the 6 to get to the 6 spaces. We said that these are parallel lines because they have the same slope and do not touch. All right, so that was all in your notes from last week. We then went into this lesson here, and we talked about the table. We kind of left class off with completing this table. So we're going to pick up with that and review what we had in our table. So we had written down that the table answers were all 10 more than the original points. So, oops, my head's upside down. We had said that this was at 10. This was 1.3 repeating, so it was 11.3 repeating. Let me do a dot. There we go. Ah! All right, 11.3 repeating. This was 14, 18, 20, and 22. We had to add 10 to each. And then we ended class by saying that the original equation was the same, but we changed it by adding 10 because every point got shifted 10 up. So now we're going to start some new notes today by continuing this lesson. All right, so lesson 2.4 talks about what happens if we have a negative unit rate. Jack and Jill are walking back from home from the bus stop, which is 30 yards. So before they were going from home to the bus stop, so now we're going in the opposite direction. So it's negative because they want to go home. So it says it's 30 yards from the house, and they're walking at the same rate of 4 yards every 3 seconds. So that's what this is showing you here. So you have the original graph, which is 4/3 x, and then here. Now, we're still walking at a rate of 4/3, but how fast can we actually go? So what are your thoughts here? Stop and kind of think about that. So if we take a look at the questions down here, it's asking us to find out, is it proportional or non-proportional? We would say that it's non-proportional because it does not go through 0, 0. Does not pass through 0, 0. All right, so that's why it's non-proportional. So in order to be proportional, it has to go through 0, 0. So that first equation we see up here, walking to the bus stop, is proportional. This one is not. Is the slope positive or negative? It's going down to the right. Look at where that arrow is pointing. So that means that it would be a negative slope. The line is pointing down. To the right. If I can squeeze that in here. All right. Okay. Let me squeeze that word in there because it's a little messy. Perfect. All right. So go ahead and, if you need to, pause the video to copy that down. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next page. Compare and contrast the rate of change or slope of each line. It says use patty paper and tracing the right triangles and find all of that. We're not going to do that. We're just going to find out what the slope is. So we're going to skip A, B, and C and find the slope. So what we're going to do is go back to that graph on the previous page, and we're going to find some points on this graph. that we can use. So we know we have a starting point up here at 30. So we have the point 0, 30, and we have the point where it stops. So we can do that triangle. So we can go down 30, and then to the right, I'd say 22.5. So if we do 30, but we went down 30, so it would make it negative, and then we went to the right, 22.5. So that's where you're going to want to take your calculator, type that into your calculator, and hit that math button that's under the green alpha key. So negative 30 divided by 22.5, and I get negative 1.33 repeating. Math, enter, enter, and I get the negative 4/3. You can see it in the window on my camera. So we get the same slope, but this time it's just negative. So we're going to use that on our next page to answer that question. So we said it was negative 4/3. It's negative because you're going back towards the house, so your distance from the bus stop is getting smaller. So write an equation to represent the walk home. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have that same ratio. But where did we start? We started at 30 yards away. So we have to say plus 30. So you're at 30 and you're going to subtract that 4/3 each second. How do they compare? So the slopes are opposite, because one was 4/3 and one was negative 4/3. What else do you think? And you're starting at different places, 0 and 30. Zero, and it's my and sign. So it depends again on where you're starting from. Okay? Again, if you need to pause this to copy, feel free to do that. Lesson 2.5 says describing linear equations. You discovered that the equation of y equals mx represents a proportional relationship. The equation represents every point xy on the graph of the line with the slope of m that passes through that origin 0, 0. An equation in the form of mx plus b, where b is not equal to 0, represents a non-proportional relationship. So these are important. If you want to star them or highlight them. This equation represents every point x and y on the graph that has a slope n that passes through the point 0, b, b being wherever it's starting. So it asks us to take a look at these graphs down here. So I'm going to slide these up. Again, feel free to pause at any time. Determine whether the graph is proportional or non-proportional, and then write an equation. So first of all, this is starting at 20. So it is non-proportional. Okay? We know that we have to do y equals mx plus b. So we have to find our slope, x plus our starting amount. We're starting at 20. Now we need to find our slope. They've been very kind to give us points. So I'm going to draw my triangles and try and find my slope. So I'm going from 20 to 28. That's 8. I'm going from 0 over to 60. So what is 8 divided by 60? Rise over run. So use your calculator. So if we cut that in half, it would be 4/30, which would be 2/15. Slope, you want to keep it as a fraction or a whole number. So our answer would be 2/15 x plus 20. That is your equation, my friends. We're going to do the same thing over here. It does start at 0. So this would be proportional. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to find the slope times x plus the starting amount. The starting amount is at 0. You don't have to have plus 0. You can just have 0. You don't have to have anything there. Slope. They did not give us points here. So I'm going to find some points here. We're going to use 0, 0. And I'm going to find another point that crosses. Oh, this point right here is really good. So let's see what we got here. So we're going 160 up over to 2.5. So we have 160 over 2.5. So I'm going to use my calculator. Let's see what I get. I get 64. So my slope is 64. So you can write it as 64x plus 0 or y equals 64x. They both mean the exact same thing. Okay? All right. So over here you have a graph of SUV sales, the time from 1995, and then the percent of sales. You can see that the sales of SUVs have increased since 1995. So they want us again to write an equation. So we're starting again at 30. So that's that B value. So something X plus that 30. So that something is a slope. So find some points. So we've got 0, 30 here. And come on. There we go. And find another point that we could use that would be easy. Oh, this is a good point here. So let's see what we got. We're going from 30 to 39. And we're going from 0 to 7. So 9 over 7. I cannot simplify that, so that's my slope. Again, pause if you need to. Number 2 says determine the slope of the graph. Now, then write an equation. Slope is rise over run. Do you have any rising? So if I pick 2 points, like here and here, I'm not rising, I'm just connecting them. So my rise would be 0. My run would be 1, 2, 3 blocks. So I get 0. So my slope is 0. So I have 0x plus, where am I starting? I'm starting right here, which would be 5. So you can write it like that, or you can simplify it. 0 times x is just 0. 0 plus 5 would just be 5. So it'll be y equals 5. This is called a horizontal line. All horizontal lines have a slope of 0. It's just y equals a number. It's going through that number. So now it says complete the table of values to represent the linear relationship specified. Then write an equation to represent the table. So let's slide this guy up. All right, let me clear some of that writing away. All right, so now we have to figure out the pattern. How do you get from 2 to 12? Well, we're going to use our slope. Our slope, again, is rise over run, or y over x. So 12 over 2 is 6. So if we're writing our equation, we have 6x plus what? So we have to try and figure this out. So 6 times something. 2 times 6 is 12, so I'm going to go with 0. Let's find out. 1 times 6 would be 6. 0 times 6 would be 0. 3 times 6 would be 18. And 4 times 6 would be 24. So that's one way. Those are a little bit trickier to do. We know it's, excuse me, I know that's what it is because it says it's proportional. And it has to go through the point 0, 0. So that's how I was able to do that one. We're going to go ahead and skip B on the next page because it's a little more challenging for us. And we're going to jump down to the next page where it has this. So it says, how are these all related? Okay, so you can kind of go through if you want to and fill this out in your book about what we did. Remember that slope is the M, that it's rise over run, or you can call it y over x. Rate of change is the same thing as slope. Unit rate is the number over 1, how much it is for 1 of something. Constant of proportionality is your ratio. So again, you should go back to your notes from the last 2 days to fill that in. All right, thanks, guys. If you have questions, I will be in class tomorrow and be able to answer them.